He's done it! Checo's done it! He's learnt how to survive at Red Bull. Yes, according to Perez, he's managed to figure out what he needs to transform himself in the battle with Max Verstappen, and that was time. That really should give you a clue as to the difference between himself and Gasly and Albon. They've had not nearly enough time to develop into proper drivers. He's managed to figure out what Red Bull needed to do in the first place. Have patience. And now because of it, Sergio Perez is now in the position to give Max Verstappen a really big, compelling challenge for the title. This is game on here. And it'll also not nearly be as tragic as Rosberg and Hamilton because they used to be friends back in the day. I don't think Perez is going to care. He's making a statement here, and Max Verstappen has really got to follow it up. And I think he'll actually like it too. He wants a challenge, Max. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. I am so stoked for Perez doing well here. But there are other teams competing here. One big surprise I think will come from this weekend is McLaren. Now fully understanding what they brought to the table in Baku with their floor upgrades, this should be enough to be able to bring them back into the midfield and not have any woeful repeats of Bahrain and being nearly last. Now Oscar Piastri's back in the game after having recovered from food poisoning, we might be able to see another double points finish for McLaren, and Norris pulling out a surprise and confirming himself once again as being best of the rest. Is that 7th place? I don't think so. It's more like 9th because there are clearly in the front running teams 4 teams competing here. Aston, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari. The upgrades that McLaren have brought will certainly help them in all of the corners and the twisty bits, bring a lot of downforce, but then they will suffer down the straights. Same for Aston Martin, really. And even though the Aston Martin and Alonso are on cloud 9 right now, and are quite likely to break 100 points in the Constructors either now or next time out, they've really not brought anything to the table other than understanding what their car is all about. So I think they'll still suffer with the main issue of their DRS not being unreliable or that great down the straight. Then again, the track surface has been renewed and there is actual water in the marina now. So we might see some surprises, but I don't think it's going to be a guaranteed podium for Fernando Alonso this time out, but I'll talk about more of that later. And if you're liking what I have to say, do consider dropping a like and a subscribe if you can. But back to Red Bull again. Yes, they have got upgrades as well. They had some in Baku, but they weren't able to fully capitalize on it due to all the chaos and the safety cars. Red Bull are going to win, but it depends on who is going to win. But then we got to go and talk about the flops here, and I think also McLaren, because McLaren have been very well known recently to be bigging themselves up, and don't worry folks, our next upgrade or our wind tunnel will solve all of our problems, and then they underdeliver and people get annoyed. So all of these upgrades could be a complete damn squib, and I might be completely wrong, but it will lead to McLaren having egg on their face, and not for the first time. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of McLaren, I just really want them to do well, but it also means I'm doubly disappointed if they don't deliver. Will the Miami experience be more of an interesting spectacle than we saw last year? Well, I think so, but they've also now put the paddock and the driver hospitality units in the stadium, making better use of the ground around them. I think this is going to be a much more competent delivery of a race. It's really not for the fans, and the ticket prices reflect that. Oh boy. Honestly though, if you're going to go to an American race, just go to COTA. That's just a more authentic experience. But ultimately, I think the best team from this weekend, aside from Red Bull, I mean that goes without saying, might likely be Mercedes. Mercedes seem to be hiding something, and we're not quite sure as to what it is. Toto seems a little bit more confident. They're starting to understand more about what the car is all about. Having already dismissed it after one race, they're now starting to pull back on their hatred towards the W14. Same goes for Ferrari as well. After a torrid start to the season, they are now starting to figure out what the SF23 is all about and making sure it doesn't break if you look at it funny. So I think those two teams will be back on it now and really giving Aston a big challenge here. The worst team though, quite frankly, any team that begins with the letter A. Alfa Romeo don't really seem on it. They seem completely aimless. Bottas seems to be taking a vacation from taking things seriously. Again, I'm really happy for him being a bit more relaxed here, but he seems to have checked out lately. It just seems really strange. And Zhou Guan Yu's doing his best. He's putting in some good performances. He might actually save his seat after all. AlphaTauri, same goes for that really. Yuki will do his best to try and maybe score a point here or there. Nick De Vries is very determined to try and actually keep his seat. Everyone actually wanting to get rid of him, but I feel like that's a little bit harsh. He's just picked the wrong team. He really should have just stuck at Williams, in my opinion. And then, of course, there's Alpine, who have had a torrid time, either through unreliability, their drivers crashing into each other, albeit accidentally, but it feels like they're having as much bad luck as McLaren did in 2015. It just seems like that car is okay. It's just not really having a chance to flex or do anything spectacular. It's crazy how much bad luck Alpine's had. It's also really telling that I saw on the F1 Experience's Instagram that Pierre Gasly and Jack Doohan, who is their reserve driver, speaking at corporate events, but not Esteban Ocon. Oh dear, that's not good. I'm sure there's a perfectly rational explanation for it because there's a lot of corporate events that all the drivers are doing throughout this weekend, and Ocon might be busy, but that's still quite telling, so I don't know what's happening there. Just keep an eye on that one. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them goes at the end of the year. But again, it's a prediction. Speaking of which, let's get to the main predictions themselves. The top 5. Oh, sorry. So 5th place, I think, will be Fernando. Fernando, again, will make sure that that car over-delivers on what it potentially could be. Stroll, I think, will be very lucky to get into the points, maybe like 8th place or something, but Fernando will pull it up to 5th. Mercedes and Ferrari are back on it. They'll start to actually get a better clue as to what to expect. Then 4th place, I've got Lando. Remember back in Imola last year, no one expected that McLaren to get a podium there, and this might lead to him, throughout maybe some safety cars, some breakdowns, to potentially 4th place. I feel that he has got it within him, and I really hope that he can get it to really bolster the morale of the team and make sure that upgrade is fully confirmed to be good, and their progression towards maybe 4th place in the Constructors might be possible. The first podium position is going to be Charles Leclerc. Charles is seemingly a lot more relieved now than he had been in the first 3 races of this season, and now I think he's going to capitalize on it. Whenever I've seen Leclerc in a good mood, he usually capitalizes on it, and again, if that Ferrari doesn't break down, he will be able to utilize all the stuff he's learned and his good mood to be able to get a 3rd place. But he's certainly not going to beat the Red Bulls. Who is going to be in 2nd place though? I think it's going to be Max again. This is like a semi-street circuit, and I feel like Max is just going to be a little bit rattled. Yes, of course, he is a professional. He'll be able to brush off what happened last weekend and move on to this one. It's a completely different race. But then again, I think a lot of drivers around there are starting to realize that they need to fight Max hard. This isn't a Lewis and Max thing anymore. This is a Max and everyone else. They are not going to hold back against him anymore, which I think will capitalize with Checo. Checo does not make enemies easily, and this semi-street circuit configuration of Miami will play into his hand, and the particular sectors and areas where the walls are really, really close, he'll get a good run on, and down on the straight, he'll know what to do to be able to make sure that Max can't get past him. And the ball is in Checo's court, and therefore he can dictate what's going on here. He's in the prime seat to get his first back-to-back victory, and I can't wait for it. This is going to be good. It's not going to be another Verper. It might be a oh, maybe not. So now I turn it over to you. What's your top 5 for Miami? I'm looking forward to reading them down in the comments, and I'm just about to join you, so I'll see you there.